Okay, so there's a lot going on these days. Hope everybody's doing well. And I just wanted to put this video together to show you what's really happening in the sky over the next year. Okay, so on the important markers, which are the equinoxes and the solstices, and also with this rocket launch that Elon Musk did, what was going on in the sky during that. So there's a lot of interesting things. It all correlates also with Trump's birthday. I actually have his hour of birth, and it's interesting what's going on in the sky when he was born and how it's actually being repeated in a certain way in the same location that his sun was in, and why that was so important where he was born, where the sun was when he was born, and also the moon was full, and what that where that was. So there's lots of things I just wanted to go over, and it's still tying in all the stuff that I've done before, just kind of repeating it in a different kind of way of showing it in the sky. So hope you guys stick with me. It might be a little long. I got a little bit of stuff to go through, but lots of screenshots of just the sky, and we'll get right to it. And I want to take a little look about Elon Musk saying, take the red pill. You know, for me, all my work is showing me that you really don't want to be on the red pill or the blue pill. It's constantly that division, trauma, drama, division thing going on. And it's trying to get a bigger understanding of what that duality is all about. And it was represented in the Twin Towers, also in Gemini constellation. This duality, it has to do with feminine, masculine energy. It also has to do with you being evolved enough emotionally that you can detach yourself from either one of these pillars, the sun pillar, which is severity, or the moon pillar, and to be able to get to this middle ground. So I'm going to keep trying to do these videos to kind of show that the good and evil have roles to play, and it's for you to be able to see that they're roles, so you can get into this higher like consciousness. And this is really what this is all about, what we're living through right now. Okay, so they launched the dragon, a huge symbolism there. I wanted to check out the sky, what was happening. And of course, Enki was on the horizon on the west, and we had the sun and Venus in the Silver Gate with the Atlas comet right next to the Pleiades, and then Mercury on top. Mercury always representing many times on the Freemason archway. It is always on the top. It's the alchemy of your mind. The rebus is very important. You see they're on the dragon. It's the duality of the male and female energies, and Mercury is on top. You know, we have Saturn and Jupiter on the right, and then Venus and Mars on the left. And the way to remember it in the sky, I'm going to give you a little trick here, how to remember which planets represent which zodiacs. Okay, so how to remember it is always you have Cancer and Leo is the sun and moon. On either side flanking them is Mercury, so it's Gemini, Virgo. Then comes Venus, which is Taurus, Libra. Then comes Mars, Aries, Scorpio. Pisces is Jupiter, and Sagittarius is Jupiter, and then Saturn is the top. So this is why Saturn is so important, and also the sun and moon being Cancer and Leo. And it's placed like that to correspond with your chakras, and also to know when a planet is in a certain location in the sky. Is it being exalted, like having more power, or is it being depleted because it's in an opposing planet's house? And this is what's going on in the sky right now, is that Saturn, this huge Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, is in a battle right now between Saturn's house, which is Capricorn, and Jupiter's house, which is Sagittarius. And they're fighting. And right now Jupiter's winning because they're both in retrograde, and they're going backwards, and they're getting pulled into Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's house. Then they're going to go forward again in September on the 19th, I believe, and they're going to start to pull forward, And then eventually on the first day of Saturnalia, or the second day, they're going into Saturn's house. Okay, for Saturnalia with a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. This has never happened before since BC time. So that there's a winter solstice Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Saturnalia's house. Okay, this is why there's so much going on this year. Here's a typical example of the moon pillar and the sun pillar, and you want to be on that middle ladder with the key. Mercury at the bottom, Saturn's in the middle, and Venus is on top. So it's Saturn is also, they say it's the black sun, but it does represent the sun. I've listened to anthropologist Robert Seffer, and he talks about it actually can be interchangeable with the sun. So, we see Saturn is the keeper of time. He's the keeper of golden age. He got overthrown by Jupiter, Zeus, and now Cronus, the god of Saturn, is coming back and taking his power back, which is the golden age. So Saturn is the real true god that is at peace, creates peace on the planet. Here's another archway we have Cancer at the top, and we have the moon and the sun and the 7 stars, which could be the Pleiades or the 7 planets. But there's Cancer as the keystone, which is the all-seeing eye represented here. And I've explained that before. It's the beehive cluster is in Cancer. The importance of Cancer is like the manger. So it's interesting that they created they named the disease that kills so many people, and they call it cancer. It's actually, the birth of Jesus, and they're saying it's a disease that kills humanity. This is what was going on in the sky with the launch, Saturn and Jupiter between their houses. Mars is in Aquarius, and Aquarius is super important. It actually represents Jesus. Okay, so it also represents the United States when it's attached to Capricorn, those two houses together. And they kind of perverted it with the Baphomet, okay? The horned goat, or the horned water goat. But anyhow, that's a whole other story. But I just wanted to show you what was going on in the sky. And interesting enough, what was going on at the head of Virgo here. Okay, so the moon was right in this location between Leo and Virgo. It represents the flag. Okay, now this goes back to Hitler and a song that he was using representing the flag. Yeah, so the words basically mean raise the flag high. So it's a Nazi song. Interesting that they did it when the moon happened to be in that location of the sky representing the flag. Why would Elon Musk do something that represents the Nazi party when he's telling you to take the red pill? Because basically they don't really care which side you're on, as long as you're on a side. And that's the whole name of the game. They win. If there's a division, they win. Okay, the next event is Trump's birthday. So there's his birth certificate. And this is where the planets were when he was born. You can see the sun is in the Silver Gate, Taurus, with Uranus there. And everybody thinks he's a Gemini, but he's actually the bull. And of course, he's born in this important constellation. The St. Louis Archway is where Trump is born on the Silver Gate. And Enki is also in Taurus at the time of his birth. So Trump's sun was in the Silver Gate in Taurus, and St. Louis Silver Gate Archway represents the Silver Gate. Yeah, and you've seen my other videos, you'll know St. Louis is the center of the pentagram with the Phi line going up to Winnipeg with the Freemason building, the Legislative building with the Golden Boy. We have Lions Gate in Vancouver, the Golden Gate in San Francisco, all running on the same parallel line as Washington. And he's basically born in the Silver Gate, and that's where the two eclipses cross, right in that location, the 2017 one, the 2024 one, with 2424 days in between, which is Iosis. In Hebrew, it's Jesus, and the halfway mark of that is actually December 14th, when we have a new moon eclipse with the sun and Mercury this year. So a lot going on, and there's a reason, you know, Trump being born in the Silver Gate is no coincidence. It's very powerful, and he was born for this role, literally. So the halfway point is 1,212 days. So we got the 1212 symbolism, which ends up being 24. So we knew everything was coded to 24. I just thought it was the year 2024, but it's not. It's actually this year, but it's coded to the 24 through it being onto that December 14th, the beginning, 3 days before the Saturnalia ceremony of Saturn being and Jupiter in conjunction being pulled into Saturn's house. So that's where we get the 24 all mapping to. The location of the sun is very important. I'll get into that. Mercury is on one of its Castor, and Saturn and Venus are almost in conjunction, also in Gemini. Like I've said many times, I do believe Trump is Mercury, so it was on the Mebsuta star, which was originally in Arabic part of the lion. He also had in Leo Mars on Regulus, which is super important to Egypt. That's where the Sphinx stares at, is Regulus star. It's the king. And then Unuki, or Uniki, is also in Leo, and that represents the good winning. Okay, and Jupiter is in Virgo, and so is Neptune. And Jupiter is quite close to the Spices star, which is the harvest star. And Jupiter being the god of this age. And the moon is on Ophiuchus, which is in the Golden Gate, which is like the doorway to being able to ascend. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty powerful where all his planets are. Yeah, and it was a full moon at the time of Trump's birth. Actually, the moon a couple of days ago, I think on the 5th, was also a full moon in exact same location. So we're in some pretty crazy times. The next big event is the summer solstice. And I want to point out this is exactly where Trump was born, at the tip of the horn. It's called Tia Anguan. And the moon is going to be there on the summer solstice this year, right in the Silver Gate. The sun just above it in Gemini. And then you see the Swan comet is there in the house of Riga. And we have the other Enki comet exactly where Trump's Mercury was when he was born. So a lot of same symbolisms going on in the sky. Now, I keep going on about Enki, Enki, Enki. Enki is the god in Anunnaki Sumerian texts that created humanity to be able to awaken and ascend. Okay, it's his brothers Enlil. So this is why I always reference Enki, because I do believe Trump is representing Enki, which is Thoth. Also, that's in Egyptian, but in Greek it's Asclepius, which is always the constellation Ophiuchus. And this is why Ophiuchus is so important at this time. And so is Aquarius, because that represents Enki as well. He was called, Aquarius was originally called Ea, which is Enki. Okay, so I'm going to get into that too and show you all that, but that's why I keep referencing Enki. Okay, so this Tia Anguan star represents happiness. It's also the official of the heaven brings happiness. So it's like the guardian of the heaven. It's also the celestial gate. And this is exactly where Trump was born. Okay, so it's pretty powerful. So in my research, I realized that the first supernova that's ever been recorded is called the Crab Nebula in the year 1054. It was recorded in Chinese astrologer. But basically, that's where Trump was born, on this Crab supernova. Okay, so there's also a pulsar coming from it, they've discovered recently more. So there's a sound frequency coming from there. So the original drawing of it here by Lord Rose drew this thing, and they're saying that's kind of looks like a crab. That's why it was called the crab. I don't think so. I think it's because of the beehive cluster. It represents, I've explained that to you before, that the Cancer constellation and the Taurus constellation, because of the Hyades and the Pleiades, has a relationship with the beehive cluster. They were all formed around the same time. So there's a relationship there, and there's a link going back and forth. Okay, so next after Trump's birthday is the summer solstice, which is on June 20th at 5:44 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so what's interesting is the moon is in conjunction with the sun in the Silver Gate, and the moon is actually in the exact same place as when Trump was born, on that crab nebula. And so then we've got like the sun and the moon, right, which is always on the top of the Freemason symbolism on some of the archways, and also sometimes Mercury is there. And we have Venus on the bullseye in Taurus. Here we have in Gemini 2P Enki, which is in the same spot as where Mercury was when Trump was born, on the same star, and then you have Mercury beside it. I wanted to show Juno in Virgo. That's like the bride goddess Juno. And this is in the exact same location in 1776 on the founding of the United States. We also have Nike, which is victory god, on the eagle. Okay, so that's very significant that this is all happening on this summer solstice, when the Southern Cross, or sorry, the Northern Cross is in the sky right at the top of the dome on the Milky Way. This all happens on the summer solstice, which is in 2 weeks, June 20th. Then we also have Mars and Neptune very close to each other, almost in a conjunction, moving towards Aquarius. And there you see Saturn and Jupiter between their two houses, okay? They're in retrograde at this point in time. So the next event would be the fall equinox. Here we have the sun on Virgo, right on the Zabby-Java star, which is the ascension star. We have Venus in between Cancer and Leo, which is the Lion's Gate, represented in Vancouver with the Lion's Gate Bridge. We have Juno now coming out between Virgo's legs, almost like a birthing. And we have Mercury right on the Spices star, which is the harvest star. It's myrrh that she's holding. And this really represents the harvest, and this is interesting because we're getting closer towards the election day. So it's quite fascinating that all this, Mercury being right at that location. And Venus in a very important location because it's one of the gates. At the same time, on September 22nd, we have the moon right by the heart of Scorpio, which is kind of like the fish hook. I think it's in Hawaiian mythos. This is the fish hook. It's the stinger. It's the dragon. And then you have Ophiuchus there's the doorway, the archway, Freemason archway, because this is wisdom and higher learning and ancient mystery school knowledge is Ophiuchus, the snake charmer who can control the snake, not let the snake eat you. And then we have Jupiter and Saturn really coming into Sagittarius, so that's Jupiter's house. So there's a lot of war going on there because Jupiter wants to win, but Saturn is getting, starting to say no, we're coming back towards my house. So they're going to be pulling out of retrograde. Yes, so they start pulling out of retrograde around September 20th and start going back towards Saturn's house. Okay, so then we also have Enki up in Taurus, right by the Pleiades. We have Uranus on Aries, which is, represents heaven on the crown. And then we have Mars right at the V of the two fish. And so that's really important because that represents the church, the Rome, basically, right beside Cetus, the sea monster. Okay, this is why I know Trump is going to win the election, okay? The moon is right where his son was when he was born in the Silver Gate. Enki, who he is is also in Taurus because he's the bull, Trump. Interesting, Venus is in the Ascension shoulder. Mercury is on the Spices star, just moving away from it. Juno is coming out into Libra. And then the sun is in Libra, which is balance, right? So it's interesting that they put the election when it's a balance, the sun is in the balance. I find that fascinating that that's the time of year that they choose to do it. We also have Nike over by Aquila, the eagle, just above Jupiter and Saturn's conjunction. Now it's saying here that the autumn equinox was originally in the star of Scorpio, but it was also in the Pan. The Pan balance is identified chiefly by two stars in the northwest of Scorpio. So yeah, so it was a scorpion claw at one point. So it was Scorpio, but it was when the time when before the precession got out of whack. Yeah, it was the fall equinox. So interesting, election day. So basically, election day represents balance, the Scorpio sting, and the fall. So the inauguration will be on January 20th, which is actually a Wednesday, which is Mercury's day. Mercredi is Wednesday in French, so it's basically Trump's day, is inauguration day. And 10 days before inauguration day, Mercury is in conjunction with Saturn and Jupiter in Saturn's house. Like, it doesn't get any better. And on the 20th, you can see the sun is in conjunction with Saturn. So very, very powerful time. And Mercury is now in Saturn's house on the tail, which is the Wheel of Fortune, by the Nike, which is winning. So Trump is winning on the inauguration in Saturn's house. So yeah, it's impossible for him to lose, I think. Also, Mars is in conjunction with Uranus, so the war planet is in conjunction with the heaven planet at the same time. The moon is in the church. And then a day later, the moon is in conjunction with Enki, which is basically in Aries, the corona, the crown, with Mars, that's his house, who's on in conjunction with heaven. So this is the day after the inauguration. Now, in Babylonian time, the Pisces would have been the great swallow. And we also have Aquarius as, like I said before, Enki. And then below Aquarius, which would be Fomolo star, would be Ni Hershag, which in this case, they're pronouncing it Ni Mak, but it's the same goddess. Okay, she's the queen of heaven, basically. And so it's interesting to see it in a different place in the sky, because we see it now as Cassiopeia as the queen of heaven, but in Babylonian time it was Fomolo representing it, and Enki was the constellation Aquarius. So it's really fascinating to see how it's all played out in different time periods. But a lot of the stuff is the same, like Leo is always the same, seems to be very important. And then Scorpio is very important, Aquarius, but in this case they have it as Enki. Oh, another interesting thing, they have Venus as Dilbat, which is actually a city. And they also have Vidu, Anus River, as the mouse, Dead Mouse. I think there's a band or musician called Dead Mouse. I think everything is related to the sky. All that we don't know, but if we go back in history, you see that things that are being portrayed in this timeline right now is actually related to ancient times in the sky. So it's all it's fascinating how they named everything and they switched all the names. So it kind of confuses us because we don't go back in history enough. Okay, Venus being Dilbat, it's actually history is from a city in Iraq, and it relates to wheat harvest with the Euphrates River, and the goddess Urash. So we had the UR again, like with Uranus being heaven. So, this whole thing with Venus, it all relates to the harvest, is to do with this planet Venus. It's really, that's what must have been what these ancients were mapping, and also the Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions. And it also ties in the city to the Epic of Gilgamesh. So I did a little digging on that. But again, here is Urash again, and it's relating to heaven, like I said. So it's that's all part of Uranus. Anything you are. It's almost like a symbolism of the word you are, like what we're saying all the time. You are, and now that we're breaking it down in text, we actually are spelling it out. You are all the time. We don't use the word you're anymore. We use you are. And I find that fascinating because I think it has a lot to do with who you are to be in this time. And it's just like the spell is in the words, right? It's the written word, and it's a spell. You are. Who are you right now in this time? Are you at peace, or are you in hate and fear? Okay, and this goddess, she's also the consort of Anu. So that would be the father of Enki. She's also the mother and goddess. She's the mother of the goddess Insun, and she's the grandmother of the hero Gilgamesh. Also, her name was Antum. They also used Antum instead of Urash, meaning heaven. Yeah, and also Ninurta was apparently called Urash in later times. Okay, so the story of Gilgamesh, briefly here, it's a poem, right, from the Sumerian times. And it says here that the epic Gilgamesh is a demigod with superhuman strengths and befriends the wild man Enkidu. So it's like Enki again. Together they go for adventures, defeating Humbaba and the bull of heaven, who has sent them to be attacked by Ishtar. And then she wants him to be her consort, and he rejects her. And then Enkidu dies from a disease that the gods put on him. And then he's looking to find his immortality. So it's the whole thing about ascension again, trying to find your immortality. The other story is about him going to like the Garden of Eden and stuff, like he's in a garden and he's saved, So it's always that, paradise. Getting to that paradise. He's holding a lion here, and he's holding the snake. So this all represents, the control. The lion is like the control, and then the snake is whether or not you can, charm the snake and not let it bite you. And what else is it saying here? After being translated, this poem, in the early 1870s, it caused widespread controversy due to the similarities between portions of it in the Hebrew Bible. So you see, there's the similarities always going through the history, and then of course, I guess the Christians or the churches, like, they don't like that because they don't want you to see that it's a repetitive story happening over and over and over again, and people have tried to record what happens in the sky in these stories. Okay, so the way I see it is that it's just a recycling of the cosmic great year, and they're all put into these stories so that you either trigger your memory for those who can, or for those that can see the similarities, but they don't want you to know those similarities. So this is where it gets a little bit like, who do you trust? The only one to trust is your own gut instincts, your own intuition. For me, this is all relating to the sky. And, we're in this time period now where all this stuff's happening, and all the similarities of these stories are all, in conjunction with what's happening in the sky this year. So I think we're in a very epic year, as we all know, as we're living through it. So Ninhursag, the Lady of the Sacred Mountain, actually replied to William Moon's, the White House photographer, tweet today. I actually spelled it wrong, but Ninhursag I put because he was going on about the evergreen trees, and the woman, the evergreen. I'm like, I know who that is. It's Ninhursag. So here, saying here that possibly included among the original mother goddesses was Damahuns, the great wife of the prince of Damkina, the wife, the consort of the god Enki. So here we go back to, it's the consort of Enki. The mother goddess had many epaulets, including Sarua and the womb goddess. So she basically represents the mother and the child. And down here, they're saying she represents Omega, the actual symbol Omega. And she's the Lady Greenery. Okay, and that's what William Moon was posting about, this evergreen. It's not Hillary Clinton. Well, you can say it's Hillary Clinton, but it also has another meaning. It means Hushsag. Excuse my pronunciation. Born a daughter to Enki called Nisar. You know, so yeah, so this is really what it's all about, is this symbolism to this goddess. But who is the goddess? Was it a person, or was it Venus? You know, because Venus represents the harvest and the mother and all that, and so does the constellation of Virgo. So we have, you know, symbolism to the sky, you know. So were these people real? I don't know. Who am I to say whether they're real or not? I don't know. All I know is that the sky is symbolizing many of these goddesses. You know, was it they put the sky names to the goddesses, or were the goddesses created to match the sky? Who knows? Chicken or the egg? Which comes first? But what's fascinating is it's Mama, right? That's when we say Mama, we're worshiping this goddess. It's the same as Enki was also spelled Amenki, Amenki. So it's every time you say Amen, you're worshiping Enki. Okay, so you got to know your history to understand what all this stuff means. And they seem to omit that when they're teaching us. Okay, I got a little sidetracked there because this was all about the constellation Pisces and it being a swallow. And here it represents as, again, you are, the letters you are as well. So, yeah, it's all relating back. It also has Gal. Gal is great, and that is also called the Leo constellation. They call it Gal. So yeah, it's the great Leo, the great lion is your Gala. Yeah, like I said before, it was one of the earliest recognized constellations, over 4,000, from 4,000 BC. Okay, it was called by the Persians, it was called Sur. The Turks Artan, the Syrians Aryo, and I think the Jews Aryan. And the Indians called it Simha, almost like Simba, you know, the story of Walt Disney, the lion. The Babylonians, yeah, they called it Gula again, the great lion. And Regulus, which is Trump, is Mars is close to Regulus when he was born. It's the king star. And it's also the Nemean lion that Hercules had to kill, of the 12 labors. And it's also relating to Jupiter and Juno. So I always put Juno in there because I know there's lots of symbolism to that. So yeah, it's the parent body of the comet temple Turtley. Oh, I didn't know that. I was following that for a while. Anyhow, it's like, yeah, Leo's important. Trump's Mars is right on Regulus. So that's super important because it's the king. Okay, so more about it. It's the prince, the little king. The heart of the lion is Regulus. This is all about Regulus now. And also the yellow emperor. And it's called the Magha, bountiful, right? I've covered this before. The Maga, the mighty, the great. So make America great, Magna. I mean MAGA. So this is Magha, but it's pretty close to Maga. The Babylonian king, and they're calling it here Saru. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think, you know, I really think you know, that this is all meant to be. This is all being pre-planned. It's being planned. This is just a movie we're in. We're just watching it all. Try not to get too one-sided with it, because this is all to just divide the souls. This is really what this all is, and Trump is being born to play this role. This is not him being placed in the last 20 years. He was born to play this role. Okay, and as the year goes on here, we had June 21st, the day after the summer solstice is the new moon. We also have a new moon on December 14th, when Mercury and the Sun are in conjunction, which is 7 days before the winter solstice. The moon on the winter solstice will be the first quarter, but the new moon is really significant in mythos. It's like the rebirth. So that's happening on December 14th, when we have Mercury and the Sun in conjunction in the Golden Gate at the foot of Fucius, which correlates to the verse in the Bible with the sun on his face. Mercury is on his face when one foot is on the sea and one foot is on land, and that's Ophiuchius. I did that in the last video. I'm not going to go over it again, but yeah, this is really important, this December 14th eclipse. So the Sun is still in conjunction with Mercury on the 17th, and now we have Saturn and Jupiter. You can't see Saturn, it's right underneath Jupiter. And the Moon is doing a close conjunction with that amazing conjunction that's happening this December. And you can see they're right on the line on the 17th, going into Capricorn, getting out of Sagittarius. And this is the first day of Saturnalia. Okay, so basically the moon is in conjunction with Saturn and Jupiter on the 17th, which is 3 days after it was doing an eclipse in the Golden Gate with Mercury, Enki, Asclepius, Thoth, whoever you want to call Mercury, Trump. 3 days later, the moon is starting the festival of Saturnalia, which is when the roles are reversed. So the gods become, the lords become the servants, and the servants become the lords. And this is what's happening with this conjunction. There's a fight of who's going to be in charge between Jupiter and Saturn. And it's like epic. It's like happening on the date of Saturnalia with the moon there. Like to me, it's absolutely mind-blowing that this is happening this year. And they're starting to move into Capricorn, which is Saturn's house, right on that day. And we also have Eunikki in there too on the same day, which is the goddess of victory. Happens to be right in Capricorn in the Saturnalia festival. So here's a real close-up of it. Saturn is in his house on the 17th, and then Jupiter will be sliding in. I think it is on the 19th. It's on top. It's like really in conjunction in Saturn's house on the 19th. And that's the 21st, when they're in total cluster on the winter solstice. And just in case you haven't noticed, 12 and 21 add up to 33. So we have a 3322 date. Okay, so here I just pointed out where Juno is. It's right with Venus on the heart. Open up your heart. Have love in your heart with Venus, because Venus is love. Mercury and the Sun right at the bottom of the gate. So Mercury has a relationship with Venus, right? Because in planets, they're Isis and Enki, or Nishag and Enki, and it's love and your mind. So it's head and heart. That's all symbolism that they use in the movies, your head and your heart. And they're all at the bottom of the foot of Ophiuchius, who basically is Enki. And that's the doorway. So it's like, I don't know, guys. It just can't get any better. So here's a wide view of Aquarius and Capricorn together, which represents the United States. Fomolo is down there. That's one of the four horsemen. The moon and Neptune is beside the moon, and the star right beside it in the water there, the point, is Hydor, That was in the Game of Thrones. You know, the guy kept saying high door, and it's supposed to be hold the door. It's not hold the door. It's that star because it's super important. It's Phi Aquarius. And it also happens that Neptune and the moon are there. There's a reason why Neptune is on that apotheosis Washington. And it's important, he already represents, but he's also in Aquarius, so it's even doubly important for this winter solstice. So yeah, it's all the players are in their spots. It's pretty exciting. So yeah, just sit back and watch the show. Greatest show on earth. If you notice, I put the time at 21:12, so we got the 2-1-2-1s. And this is exactly what's happening on the winter solstice when you look to the west. This is what's in the sky. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's all perfect, just like when they launched the dragon. Okay, I did this little graph on the winter solstice. We have Aquarius right on the west, the descending sign. The moon is there. Mars is in Pisces. Uranus is like on the head of Sittis, that is actually God's hand. And then it's in Aries, which is the crown, the corona. And above is the Pleiades, but right at the bottom plate, the top plate there is Enki. He's at the top of it, okay? So that's pretty crazy that all that's happening. And we also have the snake, Eridanus River is there exactly on the left in green there, and that's when you go down the rabbit path. You're going to go down there. And we also have Cygnus, which is the cross of Christ, right on the horizon, and Lacerta, which is the reptile. That's a demon in Babylonian constellations. That is the demon. It's the reptile in your brain. Basically, how we've been modified in Enki ancient texts. This is what's happened. And the Draco constellation, I put the eyeball there. That's the Cat's Eye Nebula. That's stationary. It never moves. And I think really that represents a little bit of the all-seeing eye. And I think it's, has symbolism that it's in the Draco constellation. That constellation is often used in ancient history as well. So it's one of those really old constellations. So in this view, the right-hand path would be the freedom path, which is the swan, and the clever fox, and you have Lyra, the music, and that's your ascension. You've just come through the eagle. And then the left-hand path is down the rabbit hole, following Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, it's kind of cool that the right-hand, left-hand is right there at the west, flanking the west, and all the symbolism is in the sky, right on the winter solstice. It's unbelievable. Now also at the same time, a different angle of the sky, you have the Hydra snake coming up. So it's the snake, it's the reptile. Leo is on right on the King Star, is just on the horizon. And also Sirius is right there, and that's super important. And we have the Pleiades above that from a different angle, right? So yeah, I just find this really fascinating because of Sirius, was all correlated with Trump's inauguration. When he was going down the street, they waited for the Sirius star to be at a certain location before they kept moving in his car, the Beast. What's the Beast? The Beast is the Sittis constellation, is considered like the beast. It's the god that's ruling this realm. It's not the true god. Yeah, it's all symbolism. It's just repetitive symbolism all through everything. And I just find it, once you can see it all, it's like you realize it's just a script. So when they say it's the greatest show on earth, yeah, it is. They're all acting. Yeah, they are. They're following a script. Yeah, they are. But truly, this is not a left, right, good, evil war. This is understanding that the script will collapse if you don't attach yourself to it. That's how we win. Unity wins. It's because only by letting go of the sides of the the two pillars is how we win. So it's really important to not get too emotionally attached to one side or the other. So here's a little fun fact. When you do the calculations between the summer solstice and the winter solstice, it comes out to 444 hours, 50.55 parts of the year, and 185 days. I was just thinking here, saying here Monday is December 21st. So Saturday is when, oh my God, when they go into Saturn's house. So Saturday is Saturn's day. Oh my goodness, gets even better. Can't believe it. So the 444 happens to be, the ministry was 444 days of Christ before he was crucified. And it's also part of the Hebrew lexicon of the Old Testament. Found or says it can be corrupt or it can be good or it can be bad. Well, it's like we all know that every symbol on the planet is bipolar, so it doesn't surprise me that the number 444 is either. And the number 185 happens to be a division for 37, 5 times 37, which is so perfect. 5 is pent. 37 is the key to 369 because 37 times 3 is 111, 37 times 6 is 222, and 37 times 9 is 333. So yeah, and then we get the 444. It's like, it's just unbelievable. But anyhow, yep, it's all coded between the two solstices. So yeah, Saturnalia, I think, is supposed to go from the 17th to the 23rd. So this is the 24th on Christmas Eve. The moon is in Mars, and then on Christmas Day, the moon is with heaven, Uranus. And so, what a coincidence. Hardly, I don't think so. It's all so perfect. Yeah, and they're right on this hand of God. Is Sittis evil or is Sittis God? Hard to say. There's all this bipolar stuff going on. So, but what's interesting is Uranus is heaven. The moon symbolism, it gives more power to that. And, is it the judgment of the God that's coming to judge us, in that respect, that it being a little bit evil. So, yeah, God is good and bad, depending on what path you're taking. All in Aries, the crown, the corona, the heaven and the moon together. So after Christmas comes New Year's, and the moon is on the beehive cluster in Cancer, the Cancer, where Trump is born, on the Cancer Nebula at the top of the Freemason archway. Unbelievable. Haven't you ever noticed that it's kind of funny the way it's spelled be best, like the BB on top of each other, or it could be babies T. Yeah, so anyhow, and it's red and blue. So it's like, the bipolar, the two pillars. So BB to me is Sarah is to be in French. And Serabis is back to Osiris. Okay, and it's Sarah or Seraphim, which happens to be all to do with the fiery dragon, which is what I started with this video with, was the dragon launch. But it all represents the same thing. They're all players, all acting, all playing their parts, trying not to get emotionally attached to the script. It's just a show. And yes, the abyss is also bee. If you go into homeopathic medicine, abyss is to help with bee stings. So we have Sarah is to be bee. And this is why Melania has the be best. It's like be best. It has to do with that symbolism of this ancient culture who understands that the beehive cluster in Cancer is basically the moon, right? Because Cancer represents the moon, Leo represents the sun. So that's why they're saying it's like moon worship in a way, but it's also worshiping the manger of Christ. Okay, so seraphic love. I know, O Lord, that the judgments are right, and thou that in faithful have afflicted me. The furnace of affliction being meant but to refine us from the earthy drowsiness and soften us from the impression of the God's own stamps and image. Seraphic love. Okay, so the Sarah is to be loved. And I found this church that actually is called the Cerebus. So they're using it for ascension. So it's the fiery dragon. It's that snake that I keep talking about. This energy that comes up to you that is going to transcend you into this higher enlightenment state. This is all about the fiery dragon. Hence why they launched the dragon with Enki there and Mercury on top. It's not like there. Yes, one side maybe looks evil, one side maybe looks good. One side wants us to awaken, one side doesn't. Yes, but they're all playing the roles. Okay, so don't kid yourself that they don't all know what roles they're playing and what they're supposed to be doing. You're being played by it all. And if you want to say, oh, one's evil, one's good, that's fine, but try not to get too one-sided, because it will drive you crazy and make you very unstable in your energy field. And this is not what you want to obtain at this time in this year. You want to have a inner peace. So here they're saying the fourth ray of ascension of flame, the white light of the mother, is in the base of the spine chakra. It's Kundalini. Out of the white light comes the architecture and the principle mathematics of the foundation, the building of matter, the temple of the pyramid of self. In the presence of the Cerebus, one knows the entirely different conception of what we call the Christ, and the real person of us all, known as the great disciplinarian. Cerebus came from Venus with the ancients of days to rekindle the sacred fire in the hearts of the wayward mankind. Remember the song Wayward Man or something? Yeah. So this is all it. It's in the old text, it's there, but it relates to Venus, and they were watching when everything was aligning. But I really do think Kepler, with the Kepler decode with Saturn and Jupiter, and he was coordinating it to the Bible. And this is a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction at Saturnalia in Saturn's house on Saturday. And you're telling me this is all not true, that things are not real in the sky, or we're not following the sky? We are following the sky, whether you want to believe it or not. The script is the sky. Try to remember that, not what they're telling you the script is. And yes, the burning is in the Bible. Okay, so he took me there, and I saw the man whose appearance was as bronze. He was standing in the gateway with the linen cord and the measuring rod in his hand. Oh, he was bronze. Who's bronze? Who's got the bronze face? Oh, Trump. Yeah, he's going to measure the cord with his hand to see if you're able to get through that doorway. To the angel of the church of the Thyatira write, these are the words of the Son of God, whose eyes are like the blazing fire and whose feet are like the polished bronze. So it's like this whole ascension thing. It's also in the book of Revelations, I think, again, it said something about your feet turning to bronze. Maybe that was the verse. But anyhow, this is it. It's all about this fiery dragon, okay? And the symbolism is everywhere. Whether you want to see it or not is up to you. Okay, so in the spring, on March 21st, is the first quarter moon. So that's a day after the spring equinox. So the spring equinox is on the 20th. That would be a Saturday for Saturn. Okay, so this is the spring equinox. We have Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn. We have Mercury in Aquarius, which is Enki. We have Nike, also in Aquarius, which is victory, the Nike god. Venus and the Sun is in Pisces, but the new Pisces, like the Pisces for the new church. We have the Moon in the Silver Gate. We have Mars in Taurus, and also Neptune right with the Nike. So yeah, it's pretty cool. A lot going on there, and that would be the return, supposedly, of the Christ energy would be on the spring rain, which is basically what the White House photographer kept saying, like the spring rain, there's rebirth and all this. I think it's the purple rain time. That's my belief in all my research. So not only is Aquarius called Enki, so is Capricorn, and it represents the sea goat, wisdom. And waters. Waters to me is always like memory. It's the Nemosin River. Nemo represents the Minosin, which means memory. And so, yeah, so this basically represents Enki again. And in Hindu, it's the crocodile. You see that symbolism a lot in movies and stuff. Yeah, so here's Mimosin. It's also a river that you get washed in. It brings back memory, and they have her here holding the lamp of memory. And she's one of the muses, one of the nine muses, nine being sacred number. And so, yeah, it's also 6 9 is Cancer, right? So it's the mirror of nine. So it's all interrelated, but it's really to do with getting your memory back. If you really want to awaken, this knowledge is going to resonate with you because this is, this stuff. I'm just pointing it all out and connecting all the dots, but this stuff in your soul. Your soul has been educated to this knowledge, and it's to remember it because we were wiped. Okay, when you come to this realm, it's like the Enki goat. When he was in the water, he has his memory. When he gets on land, he doesn't, which is the Capricorn goat. Okay, so it's all the symbolism is there. The stories are all there. It's just to remember who you really are. And it's the heart and head. You attach your heart to your head, and you will be free. Not in hate, not in revenge, just love. So here it's saying that the constellation was originally in the winter solstice. It also goes back from around the 21st century BC. Depiction on a cylinder seal from around 21st century BC. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so this is a really important constellation because it was all to do with the winter solstice, which is all where all these ancient stone circles and stuff are all relate to. Stonehenge, it's all the winter solstice. So it's also where Neptune was discovered. So that's interesting as well. And then there's a little story about the sea goats. They lived in the water. And then they came out. They couldn't speak when they were on land. They weren't able to think or speak. So I guess they couldn't speak the truth, and they couldn't remember the truth. So I kind of see that as that because we're ground people. We're not in the water. We lose our memory. And then Cronus. He was sad when they all went back to the water because he was all alone. So they stuck this one little sea goat up in the sky because he was lonely and he wanted to be immortal. But it all relates with Cronus again and the switching of time. So this is all relating to Capricorn. I never knew this. I was like, oh my God. So the whole story of, Saturnalia and Cronus, the keeper of time, the golden age, all relates to Capricorn. And this is what was going on this year, Saturn and Jupiter are going into Capricorn. It's like, in a conjunction. I just can't believe it. It also relates to the Pan God. Now, the Pan God, I think he's had a bad rap. It represents Capricorn. That's what it is. It's always like, oh, it's evil, evil, and then they have the Peter Pan story. All these kids on an island, they don't have their parents around. They're all free, running away from the hook, which is Scorpio. So all our stories, all these, it's all mythos to the sky. Now, right on this spring equinox, Jupiter is on the tail of Capricorn. It says here it's the judicial point of the goat. So it has to do with law, also the fortunate one. So it can be good depending what's there. And when Jupiter is there, it is basically all about law with the church and relatives when Jupiter is on that location in Capricorn, and that is exactly what's happening. So Jupiter is going to, be put in his place, and Saturn is back in his house where he should be in the golden age. And Aquarius, I found this little fun fact about it being the Y shape. So it's the Y. It's not just the Y in Taurus. There's a Y in Aquarius. With these stars here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different stars all relating to the Y and, the water jug. is Aquarius. So it's the washing, bringing the memory back to you. It's like being washed with the water so you remember who you are. Okay, so the Eridanus River will be the rabbit hole kind of, or the river Leth, which is like takes your memory away. So yeah, there's the two symbolism of the two rivers. This is interesting, the comparison of the sky, but Leo is, I showed you the Urgula, it's the demon, it's the king. So that's Leo. Okay, so that's interesting that it's considered like the demon. It's also showing Capricorn as the demon, and then Aquarius as the god, Enki. So they're showing like it's a little bit, you know, who's to say it's accurate or not, what's on Stellarium, but it's pretty scrubbed because they don't show a lot of these old cultures, but I just find it a little interesting when you find things that are in our mythos that you didn't know about, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's what it means because it's that constellation. So it's always fun to go back and check these things out. Here's some interesting literature about Enki being able to remove badness from you. Like basically to get rid of the bad snake, you know, and heal you, because it's Asclepius is the healer, which also represents Enki. And then also it's a poem, and Sumerian poem with the turtle, but also the ram's head again. So it brings us back to Capricorn, which he controls humanity's future is Enki. And here I mentioned it before, Enki, Amen. Amenki. It's you're saying Amen. You're worshiping Enki, the the god that is supposed to purify you. So yeah, this is really cool. I never really understood that Capricorn and Aquarius both represent Enki, but I also think Ophiuchus does. I really do. I think Mercury belongs to Ophiuchus, and it's also divine, or maybe not Enki, but Nishshag, Ninshahag, I should say. Am I saying that right? Anyhow, it's really her, which would be Venus, the Queen of Heaven. That represents the woman's divine feminine energy is Ophiuchus. So yeah, so anyhow, it's just amazing how it's all coming together, but also what's happening on all the equinoxes and solstices, because they're kind of like cardinal points in a way, that represent our cycles of life, but it's also when where the planets are during those locations are really powerful points. So the last one I want to go over is next year's summer solstice. We have Mars on the Beehive cluster, and Enki is in conjunction with the Sun on the Hammer of God. So this is all powerful. The moon is also in the balance, like in Libra. So I think this whole year, like from this summer solstice all the way through to next summer solstice, is going to be epic. I think the energies of the whole planet are shifting. Basically, we're in 2012. And that's really what's happening. It's and if you don't believe me, just go turn the TV on. It's chaos out there, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get insane with the election. And then, I think it's just seeing how people handle it all, and let's hope we all kind of rise above it and just don't get so hooked into all the drama. But I think they're going to trigger us a lot. I do think the second wave is going to come. I do think they're going to try to enforce vaccines. And I think it's all part of it to see if you're going to reject it or not. But most likely, most people will do it. It'll be interesting to see if it is hooked up to the iCloud. If it is, this array, it's kind of, they say it's like a needle array, which is kind of like fangs of a snake, which is kind of like represents the snake that bites you, which is the vaccine. The way they're administering it, it's like nuts. So all that symbolism is there. So if we'll just have to sit back and see if it happens. But obviously, I'm not doing the vaccine, and let's hope a lot of other people won't either, because I don't think it's worth hooking yourself up to the iCloud. to be able to get into buildings so that you can, hopefully not have the 4% chance of dying from this plague. So anyhow, that's all my take on it. So I wish everybody the best, and I'm going to do a video on Ascension. Somebody asked me, and I will put some stuff together for that. I just really wanted to map it this whole year in the sky, so it's not all broken down. This is all in one video. You come look at it, and then Trump's stuff is in there as well, where his planet placements are. So I just wanted to pull this together, and I hope everybody's well, and stay at peace, guys. And I'm going to drop a link to my website again. If anybody wants to have a sidereal astrology reading, which basically explains to you your purpose, your lesson, and your true destiny of your life. Basically, it's all being mapped out. You're just following the script as well. So the planets are guiding you, the energies, and you came here to learn something for your soul. And it's quite fascinating that all the charts that I've done are extremely accurate and seem to be right on, because it's, taking the true astrology reading from the sky. So if anybody's interested, just check out my website and just give me an email, and I'll start working on it. And so anyhow, I just pretty excited that all this information is kind of just coming together in one solid understanding of really how I see it. It just all is very clear to me what's going on, and they are following a script. So I just want everybody to be super wise and kind of try to rise above it. And I know the energies can pull you into the trauma division, but just keep, if we all keep working on that inner peace, I think we can really help this planet. And I think that's the only way we really can. Just don't attach yourself to the negativity.